Welcome to Off the Court, a show dedicated to making you the best version of yourself as a player and as a person. I'm Coach Jack, CEO and owner of Close the Gate Hoops. If you're trying to take your life and game to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's get it. What up, John? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's up?
How we doing?
Right above me is weird. Good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to have you on. Mainly because I actually don't know a lot about you, but the biggest reason I follow you because you're following on Instagram. Which is something I want to talk about later, but I have had a lot of trainers on recently, and so we can kind of do what you did. You said you wanted to go over basketball training in general and then your story. So first, did you want to kind of introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, where you from, how'd you pick up basketball? Did you used to play? How'd you get in training? Stuff like that.
Totally. Absolutely. So I'm John Hansberry, also known as JQ. I run JQ Basketball Training. A little bit of background about me. So I started playing basketball when I was little. Started playing on a team when I was in 3rd or 4th grade. And then from there, just, picked it up, loved it. Really loved the challenge of the game. Wasn't always the best at it when I was coming up, but really just was one of those guys who just always stuck with it and kept going and going and going, no matter what. You weren't playing, you weren't doing this, you just kept going. So got to high school, played 3 years of RC basketball. Played near Portland, Oregon, so I'm from the Northwest. Vancouver, Washington, to be exact, Evergreen High School. But played out there and then ended up getting 4 offers to play college basketball in small schools. I ended up playing for a couple of years at Bethel College, which is a small school in Kansas. Ended up playing there and then decided my best interest was to become a basketball trainer because being the height that I am, not being able to play defense like I wasn't able to, which was really the big reason why I wasn't playing that much. I was like, you know what? I can take my energy, I can take my passion and put it into something that I know I can be good at and know I have expertise in. Because being a short guard, you have to pick up on a lot of things. You have to be able to learn, different tactics to be able to play at high levels. So I knew all those things and I worked really hard throughout my life. I was like, I can't just stop playing basketball and let this go to waste. So I decided to pick up training while I was still playing. And then that carried over to a good transition into my second basketball life, I guess you could call it. So started basketball training then, and then, picked it up ever since. So that's kind of my basketball story in 2 minutes or whatever.
That's awesome. And I've definitely heard of Bethel. Right now I play at Platteville. So that's how we know the D3 universe.
Where's that?
So that's in Wisconsin.
Okay, Wisconsin. Gotcha. Very cool.
So I'm from a small town near that area, but in terms of like what you were saying, I'm very similar.
Yep.
I would say I wasn't gifted with a lot of athleticism, things of that nature. Yep. Kind of notice that all trainers are kind of like that. They had to grind to get to where they are, and that's kind of why.
I think there is a correlation there. I think, it's very, I can see it. So totally.
So did you kind of want to talk about how long have you been out of college then for your basketball training business? Yeah,
so I started my training business in 2018 and I graduated college in 2020. So I started towards the end of my freshman year in college. I graduated in 3 years because after I stopped playing, I was like, I just got to get out of school. So I was like, I'm going to double up on classes, do whatever I got to do to get out, get my degree, get out. So started training 2018, and then I've been going ever since. I started training in Kansas, so that's where I went to school. And then recently, in February this year, I moved down to Florida. So I'm in South Florida near Miami right now.
Okay, and so what made you want to go to Florida? Because have you been there before, or did you just kind of pick up and leave?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So in Kansas, I started training 2018, 2019. After I stopped, I started to gain a little traction in my small town community. I was outside Wichita, Kansas. It was like a small town and feel environment through 2019. And then COVID hitting, I was like, I'm in this area where there's only so many basketball players that can train. And, I was training about 15 to 20 per week at that time, which was a decent amount, after COVID and everything. And I had a cool spot where I was training at. I had this church gym that was very affordable. I could have just continued to train out there. And I was also coaching out there too. I was coaching high school girls basketball, varsity basketball. So I was like, okay, I could have done that and continued with that. But I knew that what I wanted to do with my training business, I wasn't going to be able to achieve in a small area like that. I did the research, and when I looked at Wichita, Kansas, and compared it to South Florida, which is Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, if I would have taken Wichita and put it down here, it would be 1/13 of the population between the three counties, down here.
That's
So
crazy.
I'm like, okay, if I want to, obviously down here, there's a lot more competition, a lot more trainers, but there's a lot more people that I can train, impact, everything like that. So I knew that I needed to get out. And basically, I knew that I couldn't get out. And this kind of goes more in depth on me as a trainer, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able at that point to just hop up and leave and be a full-time trainer. So what I am right now is actually a teacher. So I'm a school teacher. I teach 6th to 8th grade electives. Working, whatever 7 to 3, and then at 4 to whatever I train after. So
That's awesome.
And then sometimes I do trainers. Sometimes I do sessions even before school. So, I'm just grinding, working a ton of hours, making content, doing all that sort of stuff too. But eventually looking to transition away from teaching. But teaching allowed me to go to a new area where I found a lot of success thus far. And 8-9 months, it's been, I'm training way more kids than I would have ever thought that I would have in Kansas. So it's going well. It's this jump, this risk that I guess you could say I took is paying off. So it's great.
That is awesome, because I would have never have guessed you. So you work all the teacher hours, and then so you're working from like what, 8 to 8 basically?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, so if I have a training session in the morning, I have this one player that I train 2 to 3 times a week at 6 a.m. So I'll get up 5:30 or whatever, and then I have to be at my school at 7:15. So 7:15 to 3:30. And then from there, I start sessions, and I usually have 2 or 3 groups a night, and then individuals on top of that. So, you're going
awesome.
till 8-9 strong, pretty much. So it's pretty much 7-9.
That is
how many, or 6 to 9 some days. What's that? 13 hours?
13, 14 hours. That's pretty impressive.
It's a lot. So, but it's good though. 14, 15, really? 15, yeah, something like that. I don't know. I don't keep track.
So you talked about a little bit in terms of making content. Did you kind of want to talk about that? So the main, because I've found success on TikTok. I mean, TikTok's probably the easiest way to grow right now in terms of making content.
Correct.
But you've got like 80,000 followers on Instagram. So did you kind of want to talk about how you've grown on social media and when you started and kind of what you've done?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, I started training in 2018. So I knew that I needed to start a page, because I knew that was the way to go. You go on Instagram, you see, big trainers on there, DJ Sackman on there, you see Chris Brickley. It's like, okay, well, I need to start my own thing. So I remember I started off, and I was, trying to find hacks or ways to grow. And I couldn't really find anything. So I was pretty stagnant. I gained about 2,000 followers my first year or two in it, maybe like 18 months, just not much. Grew a little bit here and there, but it wasn't anything to really speak of. And I was putting out content, but I'll just tell my story, and then I'll tell you how I did it. So then COVID hit, and I had about 4,000 followers on Instagram. Basically, I decided, I'm going to start making TikToks. So TikToks was a big way to grow your, like you said, it's very good, easy to grow organically, especially then. And even before then, I'm sure it was even easier. So you got to hop on now. If you're a trainer right now, you got to hop on TikTok. Or, if you're any business, hop on it right now. This is the time. It was the time, when I was doing it a year and a half ago, but started making TikToks, started gaining, it took a while, but started gaining traction after maybe like 50 videos, 100 videos. With that, it comes a lot of responsibility, I'd say. When you're a trainer, you want to put out the right content. You don't want to put out things that aren't going to,
help the audience.
Elevate the basketball community. So I'm always thinking of new ways to teach things. So yeah, but now going back, how I kind of grew that, my tactic was really just providing value. 2019, Peter Daniliv, I don't know if you heard of him before. He goes by 9010 Training on Instagram. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen him before, but me and him did a little bit of work together. I met him, and he's kind of like, even if he knows it or not, he's kind of like big bro in a lot of ways, in helping me with a lot of the things that I grew and knew as a trainer. I shadowed him in multiple workouts, and he's the real deal. You know what I mean? But he always told me when in 2019, or he really told me then, was you got to be able to provide the audience value. I would post videos of my workouts, just with other players, but it was
Mhm.
just random clips and stuff like that. And
Yep.
I thought that was going to grow my page when there's no way, because I'm not giving the audience anything, but they're watching clips of, one of my players. It's like, okay, next, you know what I mean? But if I'm
Uh-huh.
like actually, giving them a tutorial or showing them how to do something, they're gonna, value that, and they're gonna hit follow, and they're gonna watch the next one and the next one and the next one if you're providing them value. Now, granted, sometime, some kid is gonna do something crazy and go viral for it, but for the most part, if you're teaching, that's what's gonna get people to come back. So I took that approach, and it's nerve-wracking for some to do that coming out, because it's like, oh well, who am I to teach, or who am I to do this? But it's paid off in the long run thus far, and I'm going to continue to try to teach. So that's the biggest thing: teaching, providing
Yes.
value, and it'll grow.
And for all the listeners, it's JQ basketball training, or is it JQ basketball on
So it's
Instagram?
JQ basketball training on Instagram, JQ basketball on TikTok.
Yes. So tons of awesome content on there that I think would help anyone that's listening to this for basketball training. So in terms of the basketball training itself, did you kind of want to dive into your philosophy? Because there's many different types of basketball training these days. You can go towards Michael Lancaster, skill enhancement types of stuff. And then you've got Drew Hanlon, who will only use one basketball because it's only game skills, game results, things like that. I kind of find myself in the middle. I kind of like taking little bits and pieces from everyone and then making my own thing. But did you kind of want to talk about your training philosophy, types of things you think are the most important in terms of basketball training, and what you've learned the most from teaching over these last few years?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you framed it in the way you did. There's the skills training, specific, very detailed skills that you can work on. And then there's the more game specific stuff. I would find myself more on the game specific stuff. How I teach is typically out of progressions. So I teach one skill, or we work on one skill during a workout. We'll usually perform on my workouts. I always do ball handling. So I always train ball handling because I think that's something that all players need at all levels. So I do those in 3 different ways. I teach stationary ball handling. I teach semi-stationary, where we move our feet, where you get into different footworks. And then I teach moving, where you're really working on change of pace and changing direction, because I think those are that whole formula right there is a staple in my workouts. Post that, I usually do some sort of finishing. And then really after that, it's working on some sort of skill, and then doing different progressions out of it. So like this week was big on speed stops. So you work on a speed stop. Obviously, the first thing you have to do if you want to get into a speed stop is to go hard in one direction. So you work on going hard in one direction. Then you add in the speed stop. Then from the speed stop, you need to know your options. So I tell the players, okay, and I ask them, you're in this spot right here. You go speed stop. What is your defender going to do? And then what can you do to counter it? You know what I mean? And then we talk about it, and then they're like, oh, they step left. Boom. We're going to end up going right with a crossover. Okay. Or you're going to, get into your speed stop. They step back. We're going to get into a hezi pull. You know what I mean? So basically you go from there, you go through a bunch of different progressions. And then from there, I think the biggest thing that I do in my workouts is we take those progressions and things that we did and we go live with it. So I do a lot of group sessions. I do individual still, but for the most part, I do groups of players of same skill level, essentially. So you go live with somebody else for the last, 15 minutes of the session. You take what we learned, you take those different progressions, and then you go into it. So, and you try to take, those things. You can go against air. You can go against me. If we're doing a veer finish, I'll hit you a little bit. I'll do something, but it's not like it's a real game. And I need to get players in situations and spots with constraints and restrictions on them, so that way they can really take those skills and put them into games and be able to do them when they actually get on the court. Because that's what I feel like I train for. I think that, all trainers probably do, but we want to improve players for the game, put them in situations where they can do well. So that's really my philosophy with it.
No, and that is awesome, because I totally agree with you on the group session stuff. I always say the fastest way to get better is just to play pickup. And that's what I've seen from personal experience. But
Yeah.
in terms of individuals too, and I think I've said this a few times on my podcast, but I believe individuals are only necessary when you have like shot change or things of that nature. And like you said, you do tons of ball handling. So maybe if their footwork's like super far behind,
Yeah.
you can break that stuff down for them. But if you're at a certain level where you don't need that specific attention, I definitely think groups are more beneficial. So what do you think the biggest advice you would give to a player who's trying to improve their game skill wise? And then what would be your biggest advice for a player trying to improve their game mentally? Because we do a lot of stuff on the mental aspect of basketball too on this podcast. So I thought I'd ask you both of those in terms of your basketball training philosophy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's really good. So I would say skill wise, it really depends on the player. Obviously, it's a very case by case basis. So I'll start off by saying, I don't really, I have to look at the player individually. But for the mentality wise, this is something that I've been talking about a lot with players who are struggling, with confidence. They're struggling with things like that. It's really trying to detach. And this is something that is macro. It's very hard to do. I don't know how many people can do it, but it's really to detach their game and how they play to their feeling or their opinions of other people. So basically, you play the game because you love the game and you love the grind and you love to get better and you love challenging yourself to be better. You don't play it so that you'll make your parents proud, or you don't play it so you make your coach proud, or you don't play it, you know what I mean? It's for you to enjoy. I see a lot of players who struggle with anxiety. So I don't want them to be anxious about things. If they're struggling mentally, like they're missing shots or things like that, it's like detach yourself from what you think other people's opinions are of you. Because there's a lot of players who just play for the attention. They just play because they want to look cool. That's kind of what I did when I played. I just wanted to look. I didn't really love the game, I don't think, when I played. I just wanted to be that guy, I mean, that's like a lot of people, I think. But you got to detach. Do you really love the game? If you do, then that's great. And you should love it, even if you're on the bench scoring 0 points and not even playing 1 minute. You still love the game and you still want to play it. You know what I mean? So if you're struggling mentally, as far as those things go, which I think is the biggest thing that players struggle with, is lack of confidence. It's trying to detach yourself from other people's opinions.
That is awesome, because I think the biggest thing of lack of confidence is the fear, right? And the fear is totally attached to the opinions of other people, right? What could happen and then what other people would think.
Exactly.
So that's really good advice.
And again, like I'll even go a little bit further on that. It's again, case by case. I don't really have the formula to fixing that. It's just being conscious of it and trying to stop doing it. I still struggle to this day, but it's something you have to be conscious of. I don't know. What do you think?
It's one of those things that's totally easier said than done. And I agree with you. There's not much you can do about it other than being self-aware and slowly trying to improve over time. We've covered a lot of good things and it's been really cool getting to know you, John. Normally I wrap up with my interviews. What are your plans for the future and things of that nature to wrap up the podcast?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So my plans are coming quickly. So basically I'm at the point down here in South Florida where gym space is very limited. It's very hard to find gym space. So I do a lot of stuff outdoors, which, let's be honest, it's not very professional. I don't think it's a good look for me as a trainer, though I do have a lot of people who are behind me. I have a lot of people who support me, and I feel like my training is really, really good. I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I do a lot. I've developed a lot of players, so it's like, I really feel like it's time for me to take that next step. So right now I'm looking for a warehouse space. So I've saved up a decent amount of money, and I'm looking to, get first, last security down, and then put down a court, put up a couple baskets, and start my own gym, because it's about that time. So that's really the big plan for the future. Become a gym owner, start, having a bunch of classes every night, have some place where I can consistently go. Down here in South Florida, I mean, granted, we have decent weather right now, but when it comes spring, summer, it rains a lot. It rains pretty much every day. So it's like, all these cancellations that I've had to do, all these things, it's frustrating. It's time to start the warehouse gym. So I don't know. That's really the big plan for the future. Continue to travel as well. I've done a few different camps outside of Florida, just trying to travel, do things in different places. I did one recently, Labor Day. I did in Kansas. Went back there. I just did one in Charlotte 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then I'm going to Arizona to do one in February. So looking to continue to travel, develop a network with other trainers, and really just kind of grow the brand.
That is awesome. That's awesome on the warehouse and in terms of your future. So when this podcast will be up, John, it's backed up. I overproduce a ton of them and post them every Sunday. But when I do post that, I'll let you know. And then I'll give you my number through your Instagram DM because I definitely want to stay in touch. You seem like an awesome dude.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. You as well.
Thanks for coming on, John. I'll stay in touch and keep me up to date on the gym.
Yes, sir. Will do.
Peace out.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Off the Court. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave reviews if you haven't yet. This helps us with engagement and helps us rank higher to make an influence on more basketball lives. I also strongly encourage you guys to check out our free ebook download that's 25 pages long, How to Unlock the Mental Side of the Game. I was a player that was constantly grinding and constantly working, and it was really hard for me not to see results from the amount of work I was putting in. But this ebook that I wrote dives exactly into those types of questions. I was completely ignoring the most important part of basketball, which is the mental side of the game. So the 25-page ebook that I wrote is for you guys to give yourselves a leg up on your competition and almost like a secret weapon. I call it the basketball cheat code. Also, check out our website, ctghoops.com. On there, we got tons of programs that you guys can download to make yourselves a better basketball player. We have the CTG Productivity Notebook, helping you guys become addicted to productivity. Of course, in-person training. We are located now in multiple cities. And then we have the CTG blog, free education on becoming your best basketball self. Lastly, follow all our social media pages at CTG Hoops, where we post multiple times a day, trying to make you the best player and person that you can be. All the links for these are down in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys check out all the other episodes of Off the Court, and make sure you're ready for next week's episode. I'm Coach Jack. We out, baby. Peace.